Today in science, we're going to look at the anatomy of a fish. This is a sea bream. A sea bream is a cold water fish that is eaten by us for food. It's a food that we get in the supermarket or the fishmonger. And today we're going to look more closely at the sea bream. So you can see here that we've got the body of the fish. It's grey and shiny and it's covered in scales. We've used that word before. The scales are the slippery covering on the fish's body. If you look more closely at the tail, we can see that it's feathery, a bit like a pigeon's feather or a seagull's feather. And there's cartilage all the way through that tail. Although it looks feathery, it's actually quite firm. Now there's a reason for that. The tail is involved in the swimming of the fish. It has to be strong and it has to be able to force its way through the water. So although it looks feathery, it actually is quite secure. The fins as well are part of the swimming process. So on the top here, we have the dorsal fin. And again, you can very clearly see the cartilage that is in the fin. This fin's involved in the stability of the fish and the ability of it to cut through the water. In a fish like a shark, that fin would be much bigger. You might even see it above the water. Then lower down on the fish's body, we have the pectoral fins. These are effectively coming out of the chest of the fish, and they're involved in the swimming. If you were swimming, you'd use your arms, and the fish uses its pectoral fins in much the same way. And you can see here that whilst they're feathery, they're still full of cartilage, and that gives them the strength to swim through the water. Further down on the body of the fish, there are other fins that are involved in keeping the fish stable and upright and moving through the water. You can see them here on the tummy of the fish. So we've got some feathery fins there involved in the swimming, and then on the underside near the tail, there's another fin that's involved in keeping the fish stable. Now, as we move forward, we'll learn more about the special names of these fins and how they work. Continuing to look at the head of the fish, on the side of the head are the gills. Now we already know that this is how the fish breathes, but if we look more closely inside, we can see the surface area of the fish where the oxygen is removed from the water it takes in. If you look there again, you'll see a lot of feathery surfaces. These aren't hard, they're soft and fleshy, and there's a lot of blood inside them. It's the blood that will take the oxygen away to the other parts of the fish's body. So to demonstrate how the water goes in the mouth and then into the gills, we're just going to show you here how that pathway works. So we're going to pop the scissors through, and you can see there's a nice tunnel there that leads from the mouth through to the gills. And that's how the water that the fish gets its oxygen from transfers itself into the gills. And any water left over goes out of the gills and back into the sea. So now we've made a couple of incisions in the side of the fish. That's cuts that allow us to look inside. And if we open up where we've made those cuts, you'll see inside what you would recognise as the fleshy tissue that you might eat when it's cooked. The bit here, that white fleshy tissue, is the fish that you would actually cook and have for your tea. However, within that tissue, which is all muscle, you'll see that there are tiny fine bones that are in the side of the fish. This is the skeleton of the fish, the ribs of the fish. And whilst your ribs might be strong and hard and a little bit flexible because you have to be able to breathe, these fish bones are very fine and very flexible. That means as well though, if you eat the fish, there's a risk of you actually swallowing them and ending up in a little bit of bother. So we need to be really careful when we eat fish to remove the bones. We call that process filleting. We've done a quick dissection of the head here. We've decided not to do that on film because it might be something that not everyone would want to see. And if we were in class, you would have the option to stay for this part or to remove yourself. So what we've done is basically do that bit, and you can decide for yourself whether you want to look any further at the next bit. So here on the right hand side of the screen, you can see we've removed part of the gill, and you can see more closely that very feathery, broad surface area that we were talking about, where the gas exchange happens in the gills, where the oxygen comes out of the water and into the bloodstream of the fish to help keep it healthy and alive. And then here we have the fish's eye. It's been removed. You wouldn't eat the fish's eye. That wouldn't be safe for you to do. And so often when you buy fish from the shops, either the head's been taken off, or if the head's still on, the eye has been taken out. But if we look at it closely, we can see that it's just like any other eye in another animal. It's squidgy and round. It's full of a liquid, just like your eyes. The difference between a fish eye and a human eye, one of the main differences is the fish eye is on the side of the head and not on the front. Mammals have their eyes generally on the front of their head, and that's because they can turn their head round, they can twist their neck. Fish can't do that. Fish also need to be able to see in lots of directions, so by having their eyes on the side of the head, they've got a much wider range of vision, and that might be to help them catch other things so they can hunt properly, or it might be to help them avoid being caught themselves by another fish in the food chain, or maybe even a great big fish like a shark. So if we look more closely here with the head still beside the eye, you can see the other eye is still in place. It's on the side of the head, and that's to improve the fish's chance of hunting and surviving. So that's our differentiated and slightly modified fish dissection. If we were to do this in the class, you'd be able to feel it yourself, you'd be able to go inside the mouth if you wanted to, and you'd do some of the cutting yourself. But unfortunately, we're not in that position at the moment. You'd also be able to see the swim bladder, which is a part of the fish that keeps it buoyant and allows it to go up and down in the water. However, this fish has actually had its swim bladder removed, and so unfortunately it isn't there for me to show you. But hopefully we'll find a fish soon that will be able to allow us to explore that part of its anatomy. Hopefully you'll enjoy that. Those of you who have seen something similar to this, it'll have jogged your memory and it'll allow us to continue on our journey learning more about the life of fish. See you soon.